You're live.
Good evening, everybody. Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Can I have a roll call, please?
Director Asner. Director Byers.
Here.
Director Faulkner.
Here.
Director Hudson. Director Moeller.
Here.
Vice President Petrov. Here. President Cuneo.
Here. Would someone like to make a motion to excuse Dr. Asner? It's my understanding Dr. Asner is under the weather today and is called and had emailed everyone a couple days ago.
I so moved. We give him this. Excuse him for today's meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. Public comments. Welcome to this Special School District of St. Louis County's Board of Education business meeting. Up to 30 minutes of each board meeting will be set aside to hear your public comments. Board of Education values your input and thanks you for your comment. We have no comments today. All right, Superintendent's report.
We have one report tonight. It is our update on our SSD local compliance plan, and that will be by Susan, our director.
Good evening, President Cuneo, Dr. Keenan, members of the board. Tonight, I'm here to speak to you. My name is Susan Henry. I'm the Director of Compliance for the school district. And I'm here tonight to speak to you about our local compliance plan and our general assurance document. It's kind of a routine practice that we do nearly every year. Every year, DESE generally updates our Missouri State Plan for Special Education. And when they do, that requires us to take some actions here at our local level to adopt a new local compliance plan and then get some assurances from our partner districts on matters related to compliance. So generally, we do this every year. Some years DESE doesn't make any changes to the state plan, and then we don't have to do this. But they did make changes this year, so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So just a little background. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act does require that states and school districts have in effect policies and procedures that are consistent with federal policies and procedures concerning the provision of special ed. So they tell us you all have to have a local plan that is going to show how you're going to be compliant with IDEA. In addition, Missouri State Plan has a special regulation pertaining to special school districts. That's Regulation 15. And in that regulation, they outline what areas of compliance that special school districts and component districts have and where they need to be compliant jointly and where they have areas of separate compliance. So it's really unique to Missouri that we have that in our state plan. So we have several documents. It's a pretty simple process, but it does impact several documents. So like I said, to meet IDEA requirements, it has a Missouri State Plan for Special Education. And as I said, that plan outlines all the policies and procedures school districts must comply with when providing special ed. In response, SSD then has to have in place a board-approved local compliance plan. And because we are a special school district, we have to have a general assurance document. The local compliance plan, fortunately, DESE provides a sample compliance plan, so there's really not much we need to do other than just adopt what they have put out there. You can reinvent the wheel if you want to, but why would anyone want to do that? You can assure the most compliance when you just adopt DESE's sample local compliance plan. So all these documents together outline the procedures that SSD and partner districts will follow when providing special education, and they're all consistent with the Missouri State Plan. Our general assurance document, which is what I'm asking you to approve tonight, it details our specific special education procedures for SSD and our partner districts and where we share compliance responsibilities. Some of these things are joint, some of them are separate. For instance, things that are joint are participation in evaluations and IEPs. So not only do we need to have required members participate in IEPs, but partner districts are required to ensure that there is general education participation at our evaluation conferences and IEPs. So that's just an example of some of the things where we have joint compliance. We also ask partner districts to sign an assurance statement that is really a summary of the general assurance document, and their signature indicates that they're committing to compliance with those procedures. This is strictly a compliance requirement, but we do need to have that, all of these signed assurance statements no later than October 1, in addition to approving the general assurance document. And this will apply to all districts in St. Louis County. For those districts that provide their own early childhood special education, they have to go through this process as well because they are providing special education. But for those districts, where we provide the K through 12 and they do their early childhood, they're doing it for early childhood and we're doing it for K through 12. So just another visual if you want to see how things kind of trickle down from IDEA, and then ultimately we get down to that general assurance document, which really is very specific to special school districts and component districts. So what changes did DESE make to the state plan this year? They made some changes to Regulation 3, which has to do with identification of students with disabilities and evaluation. Really, I would have to say for all of the changes they made to the state plan, they're really not significant and not going to change any of our practices. The vast majority of it was just clarification of wording. They did that to a lot of their documents this year. So for the identification and evaluation section, they just changed the name to one of our state agencies. They added 2 additional titles of the list of qualified personnel who can evaluate and identify a health impairment. So, before they had psychiatrists, physicians, I think they added nurse practitioners or some kind of physician's assistant or something like that. And they clarified wording of the specific learning disability criteria, but that clarification did not change the criteria itself.
Is that the same as in DSM-5?
It is different because one of the criteria in specific learning disability has to do with students not meeting age or grade level expectations. And then there will be some other specifics regarding, needing to have our 1.5, standard deviation difference between a cognitive and achievement. It's been a while since I had to apply those criteria.
No, I mean, the reason why I was just wondering, because I remember DSM-5 just came out with DSM-5 TR, and I was just wondering, are we in line with that?
No, it really, our specific learning disability criteria has pretty much been the same for quite some time. There hasn't been any changes or any closer alignment with DSM. I do know that. It is very prescribed. There are certain actions you have to do. You have to have an observation when you are doing an evaluation for a student to consider a specific learning disability. And DESE is very hard-nosed about that. When they do our file review, they are looking for those observations in our evaluation report. And, these things are, they're compliance requirements. If you were to make an, eligibility determination under DSM, there's probably, DESE checking to see that you did, X, Y, and Z.
DSM-5 is not as specific as what was written in the state. That's why I was wondering if they went the other way.
They didn't. It stayed the same, and it literally was just some clarification of wording, not even significant clarification. Sometimes DESE just goes in and makes kind of grammatical errors or edits, or maybe there's a spelling error or a spacing error, just formatting. With regard to Regulation 4, free appropriate public education, least restrictive environment, and IEPs, timely change, they added video conferences as an alternative means of parent participation. So while you were always allowed to do that before, they've just been doing it now, so great. And they also had an error in their in-state special education student transfer procedures. We were still doing it the right way, but they fixed the actual error that was on their procedures. Regulation 5 has to do with procedural safeguards and discipline. In this clause has been there for quite some time, but they clarified that informed parent consent does not need to be obtained for reevaluations if we can show we've made reasonable efforts to obtain parent consent and the student's parents have failed to respond. And we've always operated under that guidance, and that allowance. They've just, made it more clear. Personnel standards, they changed the title for special education teacher, and I don't know the rationale behind this, but they changed it from teacher of specialized instruction to teacher specially designed instruction. And that's probably to make it more in line with IDEA's definition of special education. The last area of change was for Regulation 16, which has to do with our state-operated programs. It really doesn't have anything to do with us, but they just made some clarification about, who makes those placement decisions and who convenes those IEP meetings, and then the process for when students do decide to re-enroll back in their home school. So really, those changes, DESE updates those changes in the sample local compliance plan. We're asking, for your approval to adopt that, and we'll move forward, and there'll be little to no change to how we've been operating this year, compliance-wise.
Questions, anyone?
I have two. Just, component districts is the same as partner districts,
It
right?
is. In the regulations, they refer to it as component districts, but it's more friendly to call them partner districts.
I figured, and then the Department of Health and Senior Services, is that what used to be Department of Mental? Or why, because it said update the name of the state agency, what was the old name?
Gosh, I have to look back. I did this great presentation a few weeks ago. I can't remember what it was called
Two
before.
different departments?
Primarily because we don't work directly with it very often, so I probably didn't absorb it, but it might have been, I'm not sure, but I can find out for you.
Anybody else? I have one question. On the insurance statement, it has to be signed by the partner district. Who in the partner district signs? Superintendent, board president, board?
There's no requirement listed in Missouri State Plan as to who needs to sign that. Generally, I either get a superintendent signing it or their assistant superintendent for student services who might be working. They're usually our special education liaison.
I would really strongly recommend that when we start with our partner, make sure it goes out, that we have not only have the superintendent or the superintendent's designee sign it, but also the board. Because sometimes I wonder if the other boards that don't have to deal with this on an ongoing basis realize the complexities. I think that would be really important when we start talking about what happened. I'll tell you who I'd like to have sign it. I'd like to have sign it the governing council member from that board, because that would make them become aware, and they would see the responsibilities that they have, as well as the responsibilities we have to them. And I was wondering, that would not be required, would that cause much difficulty to do?
I'm not really sure. There is a deadline to get it back to DESE, so that's sometimes the challenge of getting it back from some of our partner districts, is, who they do want to sign it. It just takes some time for them to get to that. I'm not really sure.
We have till October 1st, correct, yeah, that time. I'm wondering whether that might be something we should be working on. It would seem that it would make sure that the governing council realizes some of the responsibility. And I'm not saying they don't, but many times we have a revolving membership on the governing council with new members coming in. And if they had to sign something specified out what their district has to do, or has to be in agreement with, to keep their accreditation, I think that would make people more aware. Yeah.
So we sent these out in the middle of August to everybody, to the superintendent. We're presenting to the superintendents that they're, and then the next Monday, we're presenting to the superintendents on a Friday, and then Monday we're presenting to the governing council. So we'll let them know, generally with the superintendents, we let them know if we want to have them. Sometimes they have their process, so we don't want to interrupt their process of who they have, but we'll make recommendations for them.
Yeah, I realize it's awkward to say, we demand that the governing council does this because the governing council supposedly is over the SSD board. At least
They elect you guys.
they elect you, but at the same time, it makes sense. Because it would make sense if they knew what requirements are there.
Some of the districts do. I mean, I do hear anecdotally from some of our liaisons that, hey, it's gonna take us a little while, we want it to go to our board first. The board may not sign off on it, but they are presenting it to the board.
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
the board, I would like to make sure that 22 boards have seen
I
it.
understand.
And I'm not sure that happened.
But you're correct, I mean, they present it, it doesn't mean that necessarily because they haven't signed off on it, they haven't been aware of it. So, we do that with the partner district agreement too, same thing.
But as Curtis says, when you sign it, there's a certain amount of accountability.
Yeah, there's more accountability.
It gets a little scarier when you put your signature on something.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, would someone like to make an approval of consensual items? And I believe it is 6:01 through 6:11 now, isn't that correct? So no, say it with full.
Can I approve the agenda as presented, but with the removal of board policies BK and LI on the agenda, item 6.02, from the second reading board policy?
Would someone like to second that motion? Second. Okay, all in favor? Thank
You're welcome. Aye.
you. All opposed? Motion carries. Yeah. Anyways, thanks. Do I have Meredith on board here?
Yeah,
Because I'm not
Meredith is
hearing. Okay,
Yep.
good, I just want to make sure that Meredith was with me. Okay, good. All right. Number 7. Would someone like to, action items? Our action items, the following items were approved. The executive meetings on August 9th and July 26th. Employment resignations, retirement, salary adjustments, and extra duty pay. All right. Now, would someone like to make a motion to approve 7.01, administrative assistant position for the 12-month period?
Assistant.
Well, this is the, this is the one where you have the individual who is also going to train the secretary's administrative assistant.
Yep.
And this is the one that they talked about, there's a $20,000 increase. The increase was there.
I don't think it's.
How much was the salary? $75, I'm sorry. And what did the, first of all, let's get it, so that we discuss it. Would someone like to, move to accept?
So moved.
Have a second? Second. All right, with that, discussion.
This is the presentation we had.
Last time.
Right.
And it's a one-time, 12-month on.
So the way that the position will be structured, it will be it is a 12-month position, because most for administrative positions, you're either 12 months or 10 months. This would be a 12-month position. And this position would also do their administrative assistant position, plus they'll do the training and building up the training components for all of our administrative assistants that are coming in. On average, it's about 10 per year that we're hiring new. We know that we can go back the last 10 years, and so we're running into about 50 to 60 new people over the last 10 years that we need to train up and offer them too. I've talked to the CESPA group, and they're totally on board with this because they feel like it's been neglected and that people are just trying to figure out these things on their own, and they feel this would be another way to welcome people into the district.
So at the end of the 12 months, from the first, like a contract, we would have to renew it?
Yes, that's typically what we're.
That was my question. My question is, My understanding, there's probably a backlog.
Yes, there's a backlog right now of, like I said, about 50 to 60 people that should
They
be
didn't
trained
have
up.
been trained.
Yeah, so it'll take a couple of years to keep evaluating to see if the 10 people that we hire on average throughout the year.
And so eventually this position will be gone.
That was the problem we ran into before, because we got
Okay.
rid of the prep
Yeah.
position, and then that's why we wanted to attach it to another existing position, so that there can be that fluctuation in terms of what's the, what's gonna be the capacity to build it up, plus do the ongoing training for the 10 or the 15 people that we hire.
Is there a signing bonus or benefits that go with it?
No, we don't do that. We don't do that for anybody.
No. So there's,
This is structured within the requirements of the position, so you have to have a differential with currently what their pay is to update it for the additional services, or the additional duties that they're gonna be providing. Sizable workload
no, I'm
increase.
not telling you. I'm just saying that this would be one that eventually we catch up the backlog, which they're gonna be working hard. Eventually, 3, 4 years, 5 years, this position may need to be changed.
Next, this position is going to kind of create the how to do this administration, right, as an administrative assistant to the COO or to the,
Mhm.
so they're going to create all that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
That's one.
All right, any other discussion on this? All right, can I have, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Someone wants to make a motion for the closed meeting of the Board of Education on August 23rd at 7 p.m. and September 16th. 1 p.m. Pardon me. 1:30, yeah, so 1:30.
So moved.
Second.
I need a roll call.
Dr. Byers?
Yes.
Or Director Faulkner?
Yes.
Director Hudson?
Yes.
Director Moeller?
Yes.
Director Petrov?
Yes.
President Kavanaugh?
Yes. Someone would like to make a motion for the approval of our past minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, I already did the executive meeting items, but the following items were approved. August 9th and July 26th, employment resignations, retirement, salary adjustments, and extra duty. Anybody have any board communication?
I just want to, so my son started sophomore year at New Warner, and hats off to everyone at New Warner, because beginning another year of high school, and thank you very much for everyone who works for SSD on their brand new school year.
Anyone else? All right, please look at the calendar events. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.